There are some really great cruises out there for 2021 and 2022. I have booked 2. There are certain questions though that you do need to ask yourself, and these questions we didn't even know existed a year ago, but they're so important. Prior to this year, I would have never looked at a cruise's cancellation policy when I booked the cruise, but it's incredibly important that you know what the cancellation policy is for a cruise line when you book a certain cruise. Imagine you're taking a cruise and someone in your family has COVID, you can't go. You're going to need to know how you can cancel this cruise. The cruise line's cancellation policies vary a lot. Some are much better than others. I wouldn't book a cruise just because that cruise line has a brilliant cancellation policy, but whatever cruise line you're booking a cruise with, just check out what the cancellation policy is and be aware of it before you press book. One cruise line that's a really good example of this at the moment is Royal Caribbean. They have changed their cancellation policies due to everything that's happened, and you can cancel a Royal Caribbean cruise up to 48 hours before. This is just for right now. Things will go back to normal in the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of cruise lines do carry on with this more flexible cancellation policies. The 48-hour cancellation policy for Royal Caribbean was originally brought in for May, and at that time they said end of September and then things will go back to normal. At the moment it's end of January, then things will go back to normal, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does carry on. The normal cancellation policy for Royal Caribbean is that if you cancel within 57 days, you have to pay a certain percentage of your cruise fare. If you cancel before 57 days, you only have to lose your deposit. So, of course, nobody plans on cancelling their cruises. No one's going to book a cruise and think that they're going to cancel it. But just be aware of this, because if you need to cancel a cruise and the cruise line you've booked with has a kind of crummy cancellation policy, you could end up paying 50% of your cruise fare, because you need to cancel a few months in advance. So just have a look before you book your cruise. Royal Caribbean have definitely been one of the better cruise lines when it comes to this, and they do have another option which is called lift and shift. This means you can basically pick up your cruise and you can move it a year in the future without any extra charges. They honour the price that you paid a year ago. You just have to go on the same itinerary, the same duration. It doesn't have to be the same ship, but you have to stay in the same cabin. You have to move it within 4 weeks, either before or after your original cruise date in a year, if that makes sense. You can't change it for 18 months time, or you can't move it 6 months in the future. It is, as the name suggests, a lift and shift. It's a pick it up and move it 1 year in advance. I do have a Royal Caribbean cruise booked for May, which I really don't think is going to happen. If lift and shift is an option, I may look into that. I'm not sure that Royal Caribbean do the itinerary that I've booked for this year next year though. So if you're in that situation, your only option really is either wait for the cruise line to cancel or cancel it yourself. Even if you're an American and you're just cruising to the Caribbean, even if you have medical insurance on land, that does not matter. That does not count for your cruise. You need separate cruise travel insurance to cover things like if you need a helicopter to get you off the cruise ship. It's very expensive to have any medical care on a cruise, and you can't cruise without it. You just can't. I've put the links to the travel insurance websites that I personally use in the description. I use comparison websites so that you only have to enter your details once, and then it will give you loads of quotes from loads of different companies. If you, for whatever reason, cannot get travel insurance, I would see that as you cannot go on this cruise. If you can't afford the cruise plus the travel insurance, you can't afford the cruise. If for some reason travel insurers aren't covering a certain place, you cannot go on that cruise. Do not risk it. If you don't believe me on this, fair enough, but listen to this story about an American man called Bruce. He was cruising on the Carnival Sunshine when he had a stroke. He was sent to a hospital in the Bahamas, but they didn't have the kind of medical equipment there that they needed to treat him. And because he didn't have travel insurance, he could not fly back to the US. If he had had travel insurance, he would have been disembarked. They probably would have looked at him and thought, we don't know what to do, flown straight back to the US, and he might have lived. In this situation, he actually died. It's a bit of a strange situation actually, because somebody anonymously donated $20,000 to get him back to the US, but by that point, who knows what has changed. Either way, he did actually die. Getting a bit carried away there. I'm passionate about this one. You need travel insurance. It isn't just these big life-changing things that travel insurance helps you with. It'll help you if your bag is lost. Some of them include things like if you miss a port, they'll give you a certain amount of money. Some will give you money for missed excursions. It does depend on the policy, of course. They do vary a lot, but there's so much that can be included, which really could come in handy. It would be really nice to be, well, not nice to have a port cancelled on a cruise, but if a port is cancelled and then you remember, oh yeah, my travel insurance gives me $200 per missed port, that's not so bad. You could just spend it on drinks on the cruise ship or something. What I like to do when I get travel insurance is I like to go to a comparison website. My favorite American comparison website is called Ardy. What it does is it compares loads of different companies and it will show you the price from each company, which saves you having to go and get different quotes and enter your information over and over again. You enter it once, you click plans and prices, and it will show you what each plan includes and how much each one costs. If you're from the UK, I recommend you use Money Supermarket because it compares loads of different travel insurers. You don't have to enter very many details to get a quote back. And what I like particularly about Money Supermarket is that it shows coronavirus cover, which is something we would have never thought about a year ago, but it's incredibly important now. They compare all of the different quotes, put them side by side, so it's super easy. Do not go on a cruise before doing this. I've put the links to these companies in the description. The things that each company does include when it comes to coronavirus cover does vary quite a lot, but every single policy that you buy here at least does include emergency medical care and getting you back home if you do catch coronavirus. So that is the bare minimum, and then all of these other policies will have enhanced coronavirus cover, which includes extra things. I know nobody wants to ask themselves this next question, but what you really have to ask yourself is what happens if this cruise is cancelled. If you're booking a cruise for the start of 2021, I think it's going to be cancelled pretty much. If you're booking for the second half of 2021, there is quite a high chance still that your cruise will be cancelled, and you need to know what happens if your cruise is cancelled. There's two things to think about here. The first is practically what will happen if my cruise is cancelled. If you've booked a cruise that goes from far away and you need flights and you need hotels, you may find yourself stranded in a different country if you've booked all of these things together. And if your cruise is cancelled in that situation, you're going to be homeless for a week in a random city. So that's not ideal. This is why I recommend definitely booking home port cruises for 2021 because it makes this situation so much easier. I've booked a couple of cruises for 2021, but both of them are home port cruises. I'm driving to the cruise port. If those cruises are cancelled, I will just not drive, or if I've already driven there, I will just turn around and drive back home. It's so much easier. You also have to think about things like time off work. If once you've booked your time off work, that is your time off work and you can't do anything. If your cruise is later cancelled, it's a bit tricky. I would recommend waiting until the last minute to book your time off. I had booked a cruise for January 2021. It has been cancelled, but I thankfully didn't book the time off already because I had some suspicions. When it comes to your cruise possibly being cancelled, you need to think about your money. If you're booking a cruise that maybe is going to be cancelled, your money is going to be with that cruise line for a long time. If you've paid the cruise price in full, then they cancel it. Most cruise lines have taken 60, 90 days to get people their money back. I have heard of a lot of people who've waited 6 months, 9 months to get a refund. So you have to be aware that you may be giving the cruise lines a loan if you are booking on a cruise that's going to be cancelled. You will of course be able to get your money back or get credit to book another cruise, but it's just worth being aware that that could be tied up in the cruise line for multiple months. So if you need that money, don't bet it on a cruise. This next one is close to my heart because it's something I'm thinking about and dealing with at the moment. You need to ask yourself, and just look at this when you book a cruise, when is the final payment date for this cruise? Usually it's between 2 and 3 months before the cruise that you have to pay in full. Before that, when you book a cruise, you'll just pay a deposit to kind of lock in your space on the cruise, and then the cruise line will come knocking later for the full balance. But some cruise lines have actually decreased this since all of this stuff has happened. Royal Caribbean have moved that down to 57 days, I believe, but other cruise lines are still 2 or 3 months. Some cruise lines do vary this based on the length of the cruise. If you're booking a Carnival cruise and it's 5 nights or less, you have to do the full balance 75 days in advance. But if it's 6 days or longer, you have to pay 90 days in advance. So that's another thing to think about too. Norwegian Cruise Lines is 70 days in advance, which is pretty standard, 2 to 3 months. That's normally when the cruise line will want your money. That's not me saying that you should be worried about this final payment date, it's just something you need to know. By booking a cruise and just paying a small deposit in advance, you're locking in that really good price. I've seen a lot of people booking cruises for 2022 at the moment because prices are really good, and once you've locked in that price at a deposit, they're never going to ask you for more money. Even if the price doubles this time next year, because you've paid for it when the price was lower, you've locked in your price, you've paid your deposit, and then the extra bit is only going to be the price that it actually was. So it's a really good way to get a cheap cruise, so book in advance if you can. Interestingly, if you're from the US and the price of a cruise goes down after you've booked the cruise, you can normally get a refund or onboard credit. In the UK, that normally doesn't happen, but thanks to everything that's happened recently, cruise lines are starting to do this for us too. If you've booked a Royal Caribbean cruise and you see that the price has later gone down, they'll either give you a price adjustment to make it that cheaper price, or they'll give you onboard credit, which is something that us in the UK, we've always just been envious of you guys in the US, but we've actually got a little bit of this for us too. So maybe that's something good to come out of this whole situation. Some cruise lines have, of course, seen what's going on, and they've tried to make it easier for people to book cruises by decreasing how far before your cruise you have to actually pay for it. If you book a Princess cruise before the end of April, you only have to pay for it 60 days before the cruise. But if you do it after April, it's back to the normal 90 days. So cruise lines are trying to help. At some point, they obviously have to draw the line to work out how many cabins they have full and how much money they've made. But they are trying, I think. When you hit that book button, you better be prepared to do what you have to do on that cruise. If you're not willing to wear a mask, if you're not willing to social distance, if you're not willing to do everything that happens on a cruise right now, do not book that cruise. Don't assume that it's in a year's time, so nobody will have to wear a mask in a year. That may happen, we don't know. If you're not willing to do that, do not book the cruise. I think for pretty much all cruises in 2021, we're going to see social distancing, we're going to see mask wearing on board, we're going to see no self-service buffets, we're going to see loads of things that are different from what we're used to a year ago. Cruising in 2021 is not going to be like what it was like cruising in 2019. So if you're somebody who's not happy with the new cruise experience, do not book a cruise yet. One really good way to get a cheap cruise is to book a last minute cruise. If you're not sure what's going to happen on board, and if you're happy with that, wait. Don't book a cruise for a year's time not knowing what it's going to be like if you're not willing to do these things. Wait 9 months, see if this is actually happening. It may be that none of these things are, we may have fixed everything by then, and at that point you can book the cruise. You'll probably get a good price because you're booking quite last minute, and it just saves you so much heartache. You're not going to be able to cancel a cruise because you have to wear a mask on board, because you have to social distance. The cruise lines don't care about that. You've bought into that. By booking the cruise, you have bought that. So just think about that. If you're not willing to do the things that happen on cruises, do not assume that cruising in 2021 is going to be like cruising in 2019. We've got a lot of things to work out, and it's going to take a lot of time. At the moment, the cruises that are happening in Europe do require negative coronavirus tests to embark the cruise. I would expect that to continue. We may see cruise lines say that you need a vaccine to get on the cruise. So if you're not up for doing that, just save yourself the headache, sit tight for now and wait. If you're not worried about that and you're happy to cruise, now is the best time to get a really cheap cruise. You can get cruise quotes through me, the link is in the description if you're from the UK, and I'm excited about this. If you're not worried about any of that stuff and you're completely happy to cruise, book a cruise now, lock in a cheap price, because now the prices are so incredibly low. If you're from the UK, you can get a cruise quote from me. The link is in the description, and it would be so nice to talk to you about your future cruise plans as opposed to all the cancelled ones that we've left in the past.